Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Willis with this week's Read Aloud. This week I'm reading a book that is super special to me. It's called My Grandma's Records. It's by Eric Velasquez. And the reason why I chose this book and why it's so special to me is because I still remember the first time I saw and read this book. I was a college student in a classroom called Multicultural Education. And when I was reading the book, it changed my life because the main characters in this book are Puerto Rican, and they speak Spanish and they listen to a lot of the same music that my family listened to and that I listened to growing up. And it was the first time that I remember seeing a children's book with characters that looked like me and who spoke the same language and enjoyed the same music. So I'm going to read this book to you today. And there's another story that I love that I'll probably choose for next week's Read Aloud by Eric Velasquez as well. But I hope you enjoy this book as much as I do. So again, it's called Grandma's Records and it's by Eric Velasquez. Let's see if we can get to the point where you can see the pictures. All right. Every year, right after the last day of school, I'd pack a suitcase with my cool summer clothes, my favorite toys, and a sketchbook. Then my dog Daisy and I were off to Grandma's apartment in El Barrio. Because my parents worked, Grandma's apartment was my summer home. From the time my parents dropped me off until the day they picked me up, Grandma wrapped me in her world of music. Grandma liked all types of music, but one record was very special to her. Whenever she played it, she would put her hand over her heart and close her eyes as she sang along. When it was over, Grandma would sometimes sit quietly thinking about Grandpa and the old days in Santurce, her hometown. Sometimes, Grandma said, a song can say everything that is in your heart as if it was written just for you. My favorite days were the ones when Grandma would tell me, you picked the records today. No matter what I would choose, Grandma would always say, siempre me gusta tu selección. I always like your selection. Sometimes I would sneak in Grandma's special song just to watch her put her hand over her heart and sing. Then she'd always ask, ¿Cómo tú sabes? How did you know? If it was too hot to go outside, I'd spend hours looking through all of Grandma's album covers. I'd pick out my favorites and make sketches of the art. As I drew, I could see the record covers coming to life and the bands performing right there in Grandma's living room. Grandma never went to any nightclubs to see her favorite bands perform. She was happy just to stay home with me and listen to her scratchy records. But Santurce was home to hundreds of musicians, and she knew a lot of people who played on the records. Grandma's nephew, Sammy, played percussion in Rafael Cortijo's band, the best band in Puerto Rico. One day, when the band was in town, Sammy brought over Cortijo and the band's lead singer, Ismael Rivera, for a surprise visit. Home-cooked meals were hard to come by on the road, and they couldn't pass up the chance to taste Grandma's famous arroz con gandules, rice and pigeon peas. It's one of my favorites, too. While eating dessert, Sammy had another surprise for Grandma. 2 tickets to the band's first New York concert and their brand new record, which wasn't even in stores yet. I raced over to the record player, thrilled to be the first New Yorker to hear their latest music. The next day, Grandma and I spent all day shopping for clothes to wear to the show. She even made me get a haircut. The theater was all the way up in the Bronx. We took the subway there, and Grandma was nervous during the whole ride. When we got to the theater, we walked past the long line of people and went right inside because of our special tickets. The theater was bigger than all the movie theaters I had ever been to. The band made a spectacular entrance. Suddenly, the theater went dark. Tiny lights glittered, and a loud siren filled the air. I heard Grandma gasp, "Ay, Dios mío!" Oh my God. She thought something was wrong. The darkened stage seemed to fill with people running back and forth in confusion. Next, everything went dark again, and a loud and steady conga beat began. Boom back, boom back, boom back. Then the lights came on with a loud boom, and the band began to play the song El Bombón de Elena, or Elena's Candy. Grandma and I were surprised at how different the music sounded live. The musicians made familiar songs sound fresh by adding new musical phrases and words. Before the last song began, Ismael said, "This one goes out to Carmen," and he pointed to my grandma as he sang her special song. I looked at her. She put her hand over her heart, raised the other hand, closed her eyes, and began to sing along. Ismael was singing to my grandma. Then I looked around and realized that everyone in the theater had their hands over their hearts too. After the show, we went backstage. I asked Ismael how he knew about Grandma's song. He explained that the song was about coming to a new country and having to leave those you love behind. People put their hands over their hearts to show that their hearts remain in Puerto Rico, even though they may be far away. Now I understand why Grandma's song was special to so many people. Over the next days and weeks, Grandma and I put on our own shows imitating Cortijo's band. Grandma wished such a special night had been captured in a recording so that she could listen to it again and again. But even then, I knew that a concert is so special because it leaves you with the memory of a magical moment in time. As I got older, I started bringing over my records to play for Grandma. Brazilian music, jazz, and even rap. She loved listening to it all. Even now, when I'm playing CDs in my studio, I imagine I'm back in Grandma's living room, and she turns to me and says, "You be the DJ today. Siempre me gusta tu selección." And as I work, Grandma's special song surrounds me. Then at the back of the book, the song that was so special to the grandmom in the story is En mi viejo San Juan. It's in my old San Juan, so the words are there in the back. And then there's an about Rafael Cortijo, Ismael Rivera, and Sammy Ayala, which were real people. And so it gives you a little bit of background there. But this book is super special to me. I make so many connections to it. Like I said, culturally, my dad was born in Puerto Rico and moved here and left a lot of his family there in Puerto Rico. The grandmom in the story is Carmen, and that's my mom and my grandmom's name. And my mom also lived in New York, very similar to the barrio that they were referring to in this book in New York as well. So it is one of my favorite books. The drawings and the paintings they're exquisite. Eric Velasquez is an artist first, and then he wrote this book. So I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did and that you can make a connection to it. And then I'll be reading another book from him next week. Have a great week.